Action.
Anyway, everybody, welcome to episode number 5
Cinco.
of the Daily Crossing. Number 5.
Cinco de Mayo.
So definitely number 5.
Not yet.
Today, joining us for the first time is, I think that everybody saw a while ago, I did a video with my youngest daughter, Marvin DelValle.
Right.
And today, joining us for this podcast is my oldest daughter, Brianna DelValle. Brianna, for people that don't know you, obviously Lorena Pernalete is here with us. You know what I mean? So I'll give her the opportunity to introduce herself again if she wants to, but I think everybody knows exactly who you are. Brianna, for people that don't know you, we'd like to introduce yourself.
Perfect. Well, hello, everybody. I'm super happy and excited to be here today and to join you guys. My name is Brianna DelValle. I am the oldest of the DelValle daughters, right? The oldest daughter of the DelValle children. And I've actually been in the financial industry for the past 10 years. So, you know, I've gotten the luxury of being able to work with many different types of people, but specifically, you know, my parents, they've segued our legacy into being in this industry. And so I'm extremely excited to be able to come on here and speak a little bit about my insight as a millennial in her late 20s, and just seeing like how informed we can be about certain topics that I think is extremely important in times like today. So thank you guys for having me. I'm extremely excited.
Phenomenal. Great having you. Lorena, for the people that really,
I'm also a millennial on my late
want to get
20s.
more like late 40s, but
I don't think so.
all right. So just for the people that, you know what I mean, again, probably seeing this one for the first time.
Yes.
Anything that you would like them to know about you?
Well, I'm an immigrant. If you didn't catch that from the previous episodes, I'm also married to my lovely wife, who also helps produce the show. So hi, babe. Excited. Also been part of the industry for the past 10 years, right?
Yes.
So we both started when we were about 15. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
So
absolutely.
I'm kidding. It's a little bit longer than that, but proud and grateful to be to go from immigrant to working in hotels to also becoming an entrepreneur in the financial services industry. And you just get to know us. Yeah.
So I got 2 official experts on the table. Anyway, so great to have you guys. Listen, we got a couple of things that we want to cover. Some of them are domestic, some of them are international. Obviously, we definitely got to touch upon the economy, some of the stuff that's going on, some conflicting reports about what's going on with the economy. The immigration situation out of New York, specifically, you know I sound like Julio Iglesias most of the times, but when I first came into the country, I went straight to New York. Like, you know, obviously my first stop was I came into Texas, you know what I mean, and Texas was my first destination. But from there, it was New York. I'm a Brooklyn boy at heart, you know what I mean. So love New York, love Brooklyn. But a lot of the stuff that's going on, it's kind of weird to be talking about immigration. Talking about the northern states, you know what I mean? Like issues with immigration, you know what I mean? And I actually got an additional surprise at the end connected to the higher states, especially the ones that are closer to Canada. But definitely saw a couple of things that we want to highlight about New York. And, you know, right now, a little bit of the stuff that's going on internationally. Latin America appears to be in trouble for so many reasons. The stuff that's going on in Peru. We're looking at also the president of Brazil taking power, making some very drastic changes. For some people, listen, everything is a matter of perspective, right? Some people, you know, will like what he's doing, and some people are definitely not going to be too crazy about the whole situation. But he's definitely taking some changes based on his socioeconomic policies. And as somebody that made it very clear, he's a socialist. That's his position. You know what I mean? And that has always been the position for every single one of his administrations. It's not the first time that Lula is president of Brazil. But definitely, I want to highlight a little bit also what's going on with Peru. Lima, which is the capital of Peru, is a mess. We'll get back into some of that. But great having you guys. I think that we definitely want to open a little bit of what's going on with the economy. I think that the biggest issue that we have when it comes to the economy is the lack of perspective. It's the whole idea that we keep getting all these conflicted reports, right? The information that's going What are you seeing out there when you're watching the news, or when you even trying to find sources of information?
Right. So I subscribe to a couple of different things: Wall Street Journal, Morning Watch, Barron's, and you know, when you look at this, even our little notes, we have little notes over here, right? And so it says CNN, the U.S. economy grew by 2.9%, more than expected in the fourth quarter, recuperating from the pandemic. That is good news.
It's exciting.
Check this out. You ready? The next one. U.S. economy expected to lose 700,000 jobs in the first 4 months of 2023.
That cannot be good.
And then in the same point, and the thing that was done on purpose is CNBC states that the economy is growing and we're not expecting a recession. That's CNBC. But Forbes and Fortune says, and others have reported that the first quarter of 2023 will be experiencing a mild recession. I don't know about anybody else, but I thought that, 2 consecutive low GDP, I think actually turns into a recession. So I don't understand how this thing is being relabeled or renamed again. And how are we supposed to be able to make an informed decision where the news channels are just going back and forth trying to put lipstick on a pig? At the end of the day, eggs are still $12. People are struggling to pay the rent. And so that is the reality of the economy. And people are getting laid off. That's something that is happening. We see it like with Amazon, Google, and all of these different things. So
every time I pick up my phone, I see like a report of 12,000 jobs being laid off, and maybe not the everyday worker that goes in and on an everyday basis might not even realize it yet, maybe on the smaller scale, but definitely people that are more higher up in corporate are definitely feeling the pain. So sometimes it's one of those things where ignorance is bliss, because I don't actually see it yet, it's not happening. Right, that fishbowl effect. So sometimes it takes people a little bit longer to realize that a recession is coming, or economic changes are taking place. The scariest part is how conflicting the media is. For me to make an outstanding statement to be like, we're growing in one quarter, but in that same quarter, jobs are completely lost. You know, like it's very difficult for people to take seriously, plan ahead. They're not exactly sure. So how does the everyday person
You made a comment right before we actually got started with this conversation, which is the fact that you actually, also go into social media to see what everyone is talking about, just to try to get a pulse for what's actually happening in the market. For you at this very moment, being that you definitely are the youngest person on the table, even though you have 10 years of experience in the industry.
Still young.
Right?
Still young.
What are your sources of information when it comes to trying to understand what's going on with the economy, and how much of a role is social media playing today? And even a bigger question is, how do you know that you're not getting also all these crazy perspectives? How do you reconcile?
The thing is that you absolutely are. And again, it goes back to, what do you subscribe to? So recently I started following news networks like Wall Street Journal, Barron, Market Watch, which are not, maybe not the everyday sources of news for your average millennial person in your 20s. So again, what are you looking at? And of course, social media is so smart. Like, your algorithm would adjust to whatever it is that you're watching. So if you're watching things that are subscribing to the fact that, we're all good here, there's nothing to be concerned about, then the rest of your algorithm is going to follow that. The thing that you have to do is go out and challenge yourself, and do look at other things that are conflicting. And unfortunately, now it's our job more than ever to go back, and now we have to do our individual research, because if you haven't noticed already, the media isn't actually the most or I guess you could say the best place to really say that this is 100% factual information, right? Because at the end of the day, they're showing you what they want you to see, and it's your job to go back and see, what do I need to see? How do I make decisions for my family? But again, that's initiative that needs to be taken on our side.
Yeah.
And you can find that on Instagram. TikTok is huge now. You can find trending videos, but what does that mean at the end of the day, right? Because you can see important videos, you can see news articles, and we can read the same thing, but if your mind is not processing how ours is, it's it goes right over your head. Oh, 12,000 jobs, that has nothing to do with me. Oh, that's just Microsoft. Microsoft, Google, Apple, all of these high-tech companies are laying off a lot of people. What does that mean? Eventually, that affects me and my
The
family.
problem with trending videos also is that you can spend 3 hours watching a cat jumping off the window. You know what I mean? And
Right.
And that's the video of the day. And
Right.
so so we have a little bit of a gap, and I'm trying to see how this is going to be reconciled, right? Most of the outlets that you mentioned right now, right? Barron's, Wall Street Journal. I mean, a lot of these guys are usually considered outlets for older people, right? So you have a younger generation that are trying to say, maybe I need to start paying attention to it, right? And then you do see some newcomers, right, that are providing information. A lot of these conversations, though, are literally becoming a source of information for a lot of
That's
people.
what I was going to say,
Podcasts.
actually, is I was actually just thinking that more than anything today, before I would put on the news, I would go watch a podcast about somebody pulling up some information and going back and forth based on factual information, just because it's a more fair opportunity. You have more of a capability to make your own decisions and understand different viewpoints. I love listening to conflicting information because I want to see where's your head really at. Like, I think that's when you learn the best to really see like both sides completely. It is that catch-22 where you can get caught up in the wrong things, but if you use it properly, which I think a lot of people in this generation now are starting to understand, like if you use these news media outlets properly, they can actually benefit people. So, but again, it's our job. We have to find it. It's no longer like how the everyday person used to come home, turn on the TV, let me get a pulse of what's happening, and everything's going to be true, because it's just not reality today. You have more to be deceived from that.
Right. So here's the thing that I will keep in mind when it comes to the economy. Here will be a top 2-3 things that I will keep in mind. Number one, save your money.
Right.
Okay. That will be one, because things are getting tighter and tighter, more expensive and more expensive.
Right.
Number two, try to not charge up credit cards and stuff like that, just to make sure that you have the opportunity to, have a little bit of wiggle room. And then number three, just be aware of where you're spending your money. Are you spending money versus investing money? And the last one I would say is find a way for you to pick up a couple of extra skills. I don't want to be an alarmist, but if at some point laying off, right, jobs being ended, comes to a place near you, I'm telling you, because we lived it with Nori, right? My wife literally showed up one day and she's like, "Hey, I don't have a job anymore." Right. So we lived it at the tail end
right,
of the process.
When it's too
after
late
the
to,
Microsoft
like,
and all of that stuff, everybody was screwed, and then we're in that problem. Pick up a couple of extra skills so that you have the opportunity to become valuable in the marketplace.
So what do you think
four
is
things.
happening to this, right? Because you name what has become a traditional source of information, right? Mm-hmm. All of these companies, specifically news outlets. Mm-hmm. What do you think is happening to those guys? Where obviously they appear to be shrinking aggressively.
Yeah.
And it appears that today
traditional news outlets.
Exactly.
Like
you know
CNN
what I mean? And you
and
see
all
more
the
people
Fox
relying,
News
like I said, on
yeah.
this type of
Yeah.
conversations.
Mm-hmm.
To be like most people say, listen, I want to see what's going on with Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? See who he's going to be interviewing. I want to see what Patrick is doing. Patrick Bet-David and Valley Tainment. I want to see who's coming to that or what they putting forward. And now those are becoming places, along many others, right? Sources of information, a little bit of guidance about what's going on with the economy. Some very interesting conversations.
Right.
I love the fact that, especially in the case of Patrick, where there really is some opposite views.
Right.
You know what I mean? Once in a while. For me, it's even difficult to see some of the videos that do require a lot of patience. They're like, oh, come on. Right? Because the opinion is so far from what the reality happens to be, or at least even from a political, financial position. But where are these guys going? Where are these guys heading at this point? Because obviously people are not trusting them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very clear, number one, a lot of them, they have a specific agenda that they're pushing. And I think people are just fed up and tired of being told the same thing over and over again. You go to one news channel and the other news channel, and it seems like it's scripted. You actually showed me a video the other day of 2 different news outlets from 2 different states. Yeah. And it was the local news, and they were saying the same exact thing, like almost as if it were a script. And that doesn't work. I think what feeds the podcast mentality in these conversations is the fact that it's genuine. We're just trying to figure out how to navigate these things, period. And we want to hear people that are not afraid of making mistakes, number one, that are not afraid of conflicting, not conflicting, but debate. Debate is healthy. Debate gives you the opportunity.
Okay, so
for you
here's
to
my
say,
second question connected to that, and my concern. Right?
Okay.
Most people right now, just like what happened in 2008, 2009, I'm the oldest guy on the table, so I know exactly what happened there. These guys were drinking and partying
I was in
up all
diapers.
day.
I don't know about you.
Nice try. But,
I was in high school.
but yeah, the biggest issue there was lack of perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Now, lack
That's
of
happening
perspective
again.
happens two different ways, right? Not getting the right information.
Right.
And that did happen a lot. No different than what's taking place out there. The second thing is people just not paying attention. How do you
Me,
help?
hello.
All right, so what's
Yeah.
different now, though?
I got burnt. My wife got laid off. I
Okay.
lost my house in a way. Like all of these different things were happening. So I'm like, I don't want to go through this again. We experienced an incredible amount of pain. And so we said, we got to do things differently. So we decided to pay attention to. So people learn because they were looking for something or because they don't want to go through the same thing again.
Also, I would say something that really helps is being around people that have the conversation. To be
That's
honest, because sometimes when you're in a specific environment, the conversation never comes up. It never arises. So really, your brain is not being challenged in that way on a daily
You're
basis.
just not thinking about it? is what
Right.
you're saying,
Yeah.
or no?
You're kind of like living in like a little clouded area where it's
Bubble,
like,
pretty much?
right. You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you pay your bills. Like it's just that everyday routine. There's no prepping. There's no insight. And so I think also too, your environment and the exposure that you allow yourself to have, be around people that are not afraid to have this conversation, be around people that maybe they're saying something that is scary to you. Oh, well, they're talking about people losing jobs and the economy going down. And some people are like, no, stop. I don't want to talk about this. I'm out. Be the person that sits there and says, okay, well, what are my options? Like they're saying to save money, but I barely have money to make ends meet because inflation is like through the roof and ridiculous right now. And so really challenge yourself to live in that moment of like fear and being around people. I think that has really helped even your process, opened up your eyes so much like, wait a second, hold up, like this is a mess. Right. It's so funny. It's amazing though when you do get to that point because you're like, how did I ever live outside of this, right? Like what kind of life was I living before in the dark? And I think too many people like something that has helped me is challenging, like being around people, listening to podcasts. The news outlets, they get a paper, they read off a prompt. These people don't care what they're reading. It's not your everyday person. We're everyday people that are sitting down and living that life.
Even the training that we provide to our associates here. You know what I
Right.
mean? As I said, for me, my recommendation to everyone is the first thing is that you do have to make an effort to try to understand what's going on. You got to look for some kind of information, right?
Yes.
And let's assume that maybe the first bulk of information that you're going to run into may not be accurate, may not be something that would be extremely useful. So grab whatever you can grab and then say, okay, what is the opposite of this? Who's saying the opposite? Because I'll be honest with you, that's how I learned as I was growing and getting older, right? To really truly process information, right? So I was looking at something, this felt right, I liked it, I think it was a great position, and I said, what is the opposite of this?
How do I know that I'm right?
How do I know that I'm right, right? And then, by the way, at the end of the day, you're also going to develop your own position, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is, it doesn't matter how wrong you are, it's your position,
Right.
So you got to learn to say, okay, this is what I like, this is what I believe, I'm going to stick to this, so I need to learn a little more about it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm suggesting for everybody to do on terms of this conversation, because I think that my biggest concern right now, though, is that to me, 2022 was like 2007. It was like a weird economy. People still making some money, not fully laid off. And just like that, you started to see people getting laid off, right? And now 2023 is potentially that 2008. Now, we'll see, right? Because, people has been predictive this collapse for a couple of years now.
Also, too, I think something that has like really led people in that direction, like something is happening, is inflation. being what it is.
Can't
It
ignore
has
it.
really, I think, honestly, has
Yeah.
been like the most harmful part of the whole process. The cost of living, inflation has really affected every industry. And so I think
Lending,
real estate, yeah,
goods
all of
and
that.
products, every
Right.
single industry and market has been affected.
Exactly, and I think now it's a more believable conversation for people. I think last year around this time in late 2020, or 2021 actually, like it wasn't yet there, so people were like, "All right, you guys, stop! Like, there's nothing that's gonna happen.
No.
We're living the
When you-
life right
Scaring
now,
people,
right?
yeah.
When your
Exactly.
shopping cart is shrinking with the same amount of money, there's a
Right,
problem.
You
exactly.
can't ignore that, though.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you
It's
can't
like
really ignore certain things. You can't ignore
Skipping meat this
Yep.
week.
Right.
Yeah. So different changes, but listen. Hopefully, people will make some choices. With that being said, guys,
I would say one
Yeah.
last thing, and
Mhm.
is we do have an unfair advantage. You're absolutely right. You mentioned our environment, the
Yeah.
training environment that we have. We're talking conversations about this. So I will invite everybody just to at least once a week become part of an environment that challenges your thinking.
Right.
You know, because that is so healthy for you. I remember at the beginning, we were polar opposites.
Yeah.
And I was so uncomfortable, but I'm like, I wanted to be challenged and I wanted to learn. So
if we would have done this podcast at the very beginning,
we would have been fist fighting. 100%.
I would have paid for that
Yeah.
show, by the way.
I would have won, just so you know. I don't know about
I
that.
don't think so. Well, anyway, but with that being said, guys, the conversation about the economy, it's an ongoing conversation. It's not a one-time conversation. So let's see. We're closing the first month of 2023 right now,
It's true.
and it's kind of scary how
Close up.
quickly it's going, and at the same time. Again, a lot of conflicting news, so there really is no perspective to see how this first quarter is going to end. But, with that being said, we spoke about the immigration situation that's taking place, not at the border states.
Right.
We know that that's a freaking unbelievable mess, that it's not getting better. And we
Always
want
has
to
been.
highlight, guys, we're looking for your support, not just because we want to have a gazillion subscribers, is we want to bring some attention to the
that.
humanitarian crisis
Right.
that we have going on at the border at this very moment, right? The funny thing is that I want to mention a couple of things about states that have nothing to do with the border.
Right.
Starting with New York. I don't know if you know
I don't know.
this.
They're probably gonna get cut off soon, so maybe.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the states, a lot of the people that have the ability to either have opinions or have tangible votes about policies that will affect the border happen to be states that have nothing to do with the border. So it's very comfortable to say or do something that more than likely is not going to affect you, except for the
Right.
fact that right now it's actually affecting some of these people. So it's a little interesting to see the reaction. States like New York specifically, right, where they had an influx of the current mayor of New York, the Honorable Eric Adams, is now questioning what happened. Is questioning as to whether or not a lot of these migrants that arrive in the city in the last recent months, right, should have access to public shelters or public support. What happened, which should be help everybody, and did that go out the window? By the way, a lot of money. I think you know how much
Yeah.
money they put in per person.
Yeah, $55,000 per person.
Let me ask you a question. If you are a New Yorker and you're
And your
struggling
annual
to pay,
income is $25K,
yes,
and you just come into the country and you have $55,000.
just for housing, by the way, just so
Per
you know, to
person.
put you in a
Right.
hotel. Like there's a few hotels that have been exclusively contracted by the city to accommodate. By the way, listen, from a humanitarian perspective, I wish, first of all, that some of the solutions would be more permanent. And some of the solutions, by the way, the only way that they can become permanent is by avoiding this kind of situation, right? To have this many people. But now here you have $55,000
per
per
person.
person
Yeah.
just for housing. What do you think about that?
I think that first of all is this is like a difficult topic, and I know probably at the time, a lot of our nation, our country is made up of a lot of immigrants, right? And so you always are wanting to be mindful and thoughtful of the people that are trying to come into this country for a better opportunity. And I applaud them because obviously, you know, my dad did it, my family, Lorena did it, you know, I mean, but even outside of that, most of us have somebody in our family that made that transition. So I know that it is something that we have to be mindful for, and I think what you're saying, like having permanent solution to things and not just temporary, or actually making things a lot more of a smoother process for people can be helpful. But just giving them $55,000 in a new country is not the way to do it, you know? Sometimes you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink it, and it's like, to give people this much money, they don't know what that means in this country, one. And two, to be honest, the same way that it's like, you know, it's not fair to the people that have been here, live their life, and they can't find a job above $30,000. Meanwhile, a lot of money, taxes, and resources are going to this. And it's not only about helping. That's not the issue. It's not that nobody wants to help or that that's not the case. It's also like the margin of error, how much is being not used or wasted or just thrown to that funding, and it's like that causes issues to a lot of other things. So maybe in the beginning, you know, the mayor wants to seem like a good guy, you know, yeah, I'm here for the people, we're here for the people, you know. Okay. Very I commend him for that, but that hurts the people that are already living there, and you run the risk as a state, like losing even more, you know, money than the state already has. Again, like I said, I'm like ready to cut New York off. You're like your own little country at this point.
Yeah, but what do you think it does for expectations, right?
Well,
people,
right?
Like if by the way, if I'm somewhere in El Salvador right now, if I'm somewhere in Honduras, if I'm somewhere in Nicaragua, if I'm somewhere in Venezuela, and I'm saying, wait a minute, what do you mean they're gonna 55?
Whatever.
They're gonna put me in a hotel?
Yeah. But that's the point. Yeah. You get it one time, and then it's like you don't know how to make that kind of money. You're almost like setting up false expectations of what it is to actually be here in this country.
So check this. I'm gonna ask you a question. Yeah. You came to the U.S., right? Private jet and everything, right? What's it? No, right? So where did you stay?
I was staying in a refugee when I finally made it across the border. By the way, for the record, for a lot of people that get conflicted and don't understand my position, right? And they think that I'm an immigrant who's anti-immigrant.
That's not
true.
No.
What you don't understand is that I'm actually looking for real solutions, not all these political games and gimmicks that everybody's playing with the issue. This has been a political football for so many years, and people just keep playing games with it with no real solution.
But maybe they don't understand that. So maybe from another country, they think that we understand, the people that live here, that they understand that we understand what they're going through.
Correct.
But here in this country, it is a political game. Right. It's what is going to be promised, how long it's going to be taken care of. Really, the truth is being hidden from a lot of people here.
Well, but here's something that I want to tell you, though. The easiest way to actually ensure that some of these people are going to end up homeless is not to give them the right perspective.
Right. 100%. I agree.
The easiest way to ensure that these people are going to become a burden to taxpayers and government is by giving them the wrong perspective. The whole idea that, you know what, we're going to provide for everything for you because, listen, I crossed the border, came into a refugee home. I was able to make it across. There was no 5-star.
There was no bus.
But yeah, there's
coach bus, nothing like that. Okay, I just wanted to ask you a question.
Immediately. Listen, don't let the fancy suit fool you. You know what I mean? I was cleaning floors. I was painting apartments. I was slept on the floor, mattress on the floor, and I knew that if I wanted to eat, I have to work, and if I wanted to improve my position, I have to find a way to understand the American way, to embrace the American dream better, and just to do a better job in general. But my expectations was I have to do something to put myself and my family in a better position, right? That's not what is the country going to do for me, right? Which is essentially what we're developing right now, the wrong set of expectations. Now, I'm asking you because obviously you are from Venezuela, your family's from Venezuela. You know what a country, the harm that it can actually
Yeah.
do to people when they start creating the wrong set of expectations.
So here's where I'm at with it, because whenever you move to the U.S., you went through the border, but even when you got to New York, you slept on the basement.
Slept on the floor, mattress on the floor.
That's it, right?
Went hungry, multiple.
100%. Same thing for us. I mean, when we
Yeah.
moved here, there was like 12 of us in a 3-bedroom apartment, you know? And so,
Yeah.
by the way, it was an expectation. I was working. I was 14 years old and I was working. You know what I mean? I lied on my papers, just so you know. McDonald's, thank you.
You gotta check your papers now.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lorena's not my real name. No, but I mean it because that made me the person that I am today. We earn every single step of the way, and like taking that opportunity from somebody, you know, just because you want to be humanitarian, I agree, but it's just not, in my opinion, it's not sustainable, and you're absolutely right. It doesn't create the right level of expectation. The second thing is, I wonder how much money we're putting into our veterans.
I was thinking about that. Right.
You know, because it's like like our vets
If
right
I'm
now.
a New Yorker, and
It's
by the
like
way, if my grandma is
firefighters.
somewhere right now, you're talking about vets. You're talking about. By the way, I appreciate you even mentioning that.
Because that's where I go. I'm like, you say something so profound, which is before you go rescue the planet,
Yeah.
come rescue yourself. Right now, we have a crisis, not taking care of our vets. Our vets are struggling.
Correct.
You know, it's like you have to be on the phone for how long to be able to get health care? Like, what the heck? You know, so all of these things are happening, and
By the way,
and
some of them don't have housing.
Right.
You have homeless
veterans that served
right
our
now
country.
that serve our country.
Yeah.
That right now don't have the proper. They don't even have housing. That's
No.
right. By the way, it's a false mercy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I want to make sure that I want to be very clear about this. This is false mercy. This is putting a band-aid on a problem that looks good for a little while up until the point that hopefully everybody's going to start paying attention to a bigger problem. Next thing you know, everybody's out on the street. By the way, most of the people, just so that you know, I don't know if you remember when they set up that gigantic center in New York also. There was supposed to be housing many people in that place, and in a matter of weeks it was completely empty, right? Why? Because in reality most people are not coming for a handout.
Right.
Most
Right.
people are
They're
actually
coming to
coming,
work.
they want to do something,
Yeah.
they want to be productive. The last thing that you want to do is cripple the spirit of that person that's coming in to do something, and now you're creating all this, again, false mercy, right?
Right.
It's not a real solution.
The last thing that I would say, Coach, is, you know, for me, and I'm totally against big government. This is what $55,000 per person is what happens whenever you put, like, it's somebody else's money that they're spending.
Right.
You know, you put a video together. I watched it. You know what? I wish we can get it in front of somebody that would actually care to take attention to it. But you know, the whole idea of privatizing this is actually something that I promise you will be way more efficient than $55,000. And that's what I'm bringing to the table. Anytime you make government bigger, the people that suffer are the ones that are sustaining the government, which is you and I.
Right.
And so the more and more that you have the opportunity to say, how can I take take care of these people, but in a different way? How can I have a system that is sustainable? I'm all for that. And so, but yeah, this is unacceptable. I believe that if we're going to be pouring this much money onto something, for me, it should be vets.
Right. And I mean, let's also pay attention to the fact that a lot of these people are being housed in hotels, right? And so that's becoming like a huge deal. Talking of social media, right, in my generation, I was looking at videos of this, and the amount of like food and resources that is also being wasted in the process. You know, I don't think any state right now is in the position to be wasting the kind of resources that are being wasted. And I'm not saying wasted like the resources that they're using is wasted. No, I'm saying that the resources that are being dedicated for this and are still not being used are considered wasteful. So the food, right?
Yeah.
The amount of food that's being wasted in that process, it's like so it's
know
so
why,
sad,
though,
and it
right?
trickles down. Like, it's not just like, oh, this is its one issue, we'll deal with that. If everything is like a chain, it affects something in another area as well. So
So, by the way, if they're staying in a hotel, they're held liable if they keep food for a little bit too long.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like you and I will eat like the rice and chicken, and the rice and beans for like a week later. That cannot happen because if somebody gets sick, they become liable at the hotel, so they have to even throw some food away.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that this is not sustainable.
No, it's not.
This is not a permanent
and again, it goes
solution.
back to, and the reason why, and hopefully you can watch the video where we are recommending for the immigration system to maybe we can put a link to it. You know what I mean, to make immigration a private process, right, or put it in the hands of private entity, is because we can, first of all, we can make it faster, right? And we already established there's a million things that we can do to make the process go faster. You have a lot of people that actually started the process, wanted to do it the right way, and at the end they just say, you know what, I just can't wait any longer. My family's being killed. Whether level of danger, political situation, whatever the case may be, some people actually will end up in this country going through borders because the process took so long, right, that they couldn't fix it. In addition to that, though, you can turn immigration into a proactive system. You can literally go recruit talent, or you can go to the private industry and say, how many people do you need for labor force or any levels of any industry. They're talking about from the medical to, if you want to talk about technology, anything. Think about engineers, any area where we can proactively go and get the right people, the right amount. We can literally balance out the level of immigration and the population that we have. They're talking about real population control, right? Where we can actually have an impact. But more than anything else, we have to start moving in a direction where we are offering permanent solutions to this whole process, right? I do want the wall to go up. But why do I want the wall to go up? Because I want to see if we can get to the point where we have a point of entry. If we have a point of entry, if I'm a guy that all I'm looking for is to provide for my family, I have no issues saying, okay, all I got to do is check me, here's my name. So in a matter of 24 hours, we know exactly what's going on. Everybody's fingerprinted. We know how to find you. We know how to... And if somebody's jumping the wall, we know that there's a problem with that guy, right? There's so many things that we can be doing right now. I'm inviting everybody to be part of this conversation precisely so that we can change the way the game is being played right now.
So what you're saying is right now, because there is no real system, the good guys and the bad guys are all put into one place.
Together. You really don't know who's crossing the border right now.
Right. But if there were a system where there's actually an efficient system, you would have a way for you to say, hey, here's a real way for you to enter. Kind of like Ellis Island.
Literally exactly what happened during the European migration, right, through Ellis Island, precisely. And we can literally replicate something to that effect, do it better, faster. We have the technology. Listen, you can track a package coming from China right now, right? And you know exactly where it is. Yeah. And when it's going to arrive. You mean to tell me we don't know when Pedro is going to come in? It's like, come on, give it up. But here's one thing that I want to highlight for you guys.
Is that sustainable, though?
The American, absolutely, and you can build upon that. As a matter of fact, you can turn that. Imagine if every embassy, in addition to being a place where United States has representation, becomes almost like a staffing recruiting center, where you're actually looking for some of the best possible talent that happens to be out there. And I promise you, there's going to be another crazy country that's going to go, that sounds like a good idea. We're probably going to start see how we find some talent. I hope that somebody will take this idea seriously enough to say, you know what, that's not necessarily something bad. You know what I mean? The overwhelming American citizen population is pro-immigration.
Yeah.
You can be the most conservative, hardcore, you can call right-wing person. What they want is for things to be handled orderly. We don't know who's coming in. That's a valid point. We do know that there's a lot of criminals that have made it through the border. That's also another valid point. We know that there's an incredible amount of drugs that are coming through the border precisely because of all these openings that we have. That's also another valid point. We also know the amount of abuses to children and women right now, right? That every single physical abuse that they experience is taking place. So the fact that nothing is being done, though, listen, I've been in the country over 30 years now. And to see it getting worse, and I'm going to say that over and over, up until I see somebody taking some legitimate situations, legitimate choices, you know what I mean? But right now, we're not doing anything, so I hope it gets better, guys, but I don't know if you have any final thoughts about this immigration thing, but I just wanted to...
What state do you think is going to be the next one to introduce something like this, or you think that this is going to stop
You
right
want to
in
hear
New
something
York?
funny? Here's one of the funny things that I wanted to add when it comes to northern states. You know where we have 743% immigration increase taking place right now? That has nothing to do with the border state. How about the great state of our very good friend and senator, he's definitely one of your very close friends, Mr. Bernie Sanders. He hails from the incredible, amazing state of Vermont, right? Where we get, what do we get from Vermont? We get cheese. We get also, what else do
National
we
Life
get?
Group.
No, we get, by the way, yes, National Life Group, a lot of syrup and also Bernie Sanders.
Syrup, yeah.
Well, 743% increase in immigration.
Wait, what is that? From 2 to like 5
Why?
or,
Well,
or what is this?
as a matter of fact, if you want to know how bad the economy is in the country, you have even some immigrants right now saying, no, listen, I don't want to stay.
Right through.
The eggs are too expensive
just
here right
passing
now.
by,
We're
right.
just passing by. We're going to Canada. By the way,
Universal care.
fun fact, I was in that refugee
Good thing or
home.
bad thing?
A little bit of both, you
I
know
was
what I
gonna-
mean? A little bit
yeah.
of both, and I will tell you why. It's funny that I was 18 years old, and I'm in that refugee home in Brownsville, Texas. It used to be called Casa Monsignor Oscar Romero. It was a Catholic base, and today they call it something different. I always forget the name. So this guy, I mean, this I will never forget this because I couldn't understand. Like, this guy drove from Canada, right? He was going to, I don't know if it was El Salvador or he was going to one of the Central American countries, right?
From Canada.
From Canada. By the way, he's already driving. You know the ride, right? That's a long drive,
Yeah.
right? And he made it his business to stop by the refugee home just to tell everybody, don't stay here. Just go straight to Canada because you're gonna have better chances and a better experience. And I'm like, seriously? Was that like a commercial for Canada? You're
Right.
recruiting for
Free
Canada?
marketing.
But
Maybe somebody already took your
Canada
idea.
right now, guys, has an aging population problem
Right.
that is really becoming an issue. And you see Canada becoming a lot more immigration friendly because they want to start replacing that aging population with obviously some new blood and newcomers. Funny enough, your very good friend Chuck Schumer, also the great senator from the amazing state of New York, also suggested that we should be concerned about replacing, some of the people. And the immigration is a good thing for, I agree with it. Immigration is a good thing if you do it right,
Right,
Senator.
yeah.
That's all we are asking you to do, to you and everybody that has the ability to make those choices. It's time that we get that together. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate the perspective. Again, I'm asking everybody to try to move this around a little bit, just to see if we can get somebody to pay attention to it. I wanted to highlight something. I don't want to get you nervous. I do want to say something that, from an international perspective, but before I get there, there's a general, four-star general, guys, that, as a matter of fact, today, I believe is going through different news channels, that is being said that an active four-star general, General Mike Minahan, is literally saying that probably no later than 2025, we're going to be going to war with China, obviously more than anything else connected to what's going on in Taiwan as a potential threat. How are you feeling about a potential war with China?
I'm petrified. That for me, in my perspective, they're our number one, enemy. Those are the guys that I'm looking at. They're the ones making the least amount of noise, but paying the most amount of attention, making the most amount of friends with our enemies as well. I wouldn't necessarily say that we're in a place to actually do that. To go to war with them. I'm scared, and to think it's only in 2025. I mean, it's going to be a big deal when election time comes around. Who's going to be the one that's going to be heading that it's
So what do you think
It's
about
scary,
it?
China.
You only get a couple of years to live it up a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The rest of our 20s, we're dedicating it to something completely different. No, but no, seriously, that is really scary because where China's headed in the direction that they're going in, it is something to be concerned about, like 1,000%. I would be scared, and only 2025. I mean, to be honest, people are just trying to get their shit together in 2023. Much less we're ready as a country to go to war with China. I really don't. I don't foresee great things with that.
Yeah, I mean, they do have, I think, the fact that like TikTok is all over us. They're like listening to us.
No.
Watching
All over
us.
you guys.
No, not me. I don't
because
have TikTok on me.
Oh, okay,
I
so
don't
all
TikTok.
over some of you guys.
That's what
I have TikTok. Okay, I
they're,
do.
like,
I
spying
do
on
have
you.
TikTok.
They know all your information.
Yeah.
By default, they probably also get all my information because that's horrible.
Oh no.
That's horrible.
No, but so like that is because I wonder, like, for real, how much intel they have on us that we have no idea that they do have. So that's one.
Right.
Two, looking at the state of the economy right now, I always go for the money because that's that's the number one thing. At the end of the day, how are we gonna pay for yet another war? You know, with all of the things that are happening, all of these things that we're funding, in addition to, like taxes, the way that it's gonna happen, how we're recruiting into our military. How our military is kind of looking. So you're looking at all of those different things, and it is scary. Respect to our military, out there, and the men and women that decide to put themselves in the line to protect us. I'm concerned for that. It is a scary proposition, but yeah.
Well,
how are we gonna pay for it?
I will tell you, if we are going to go to war, I would like to see that happening sooner than later, because what's actually happening is their readiness for war, and when it comes to just equipment and stuff, is getting bigger. The technology.
So you're saying you want them to
improving.
lay all their hands on the table to see what we're dealing with?
Right about now, I think we need to understand how much of a dominant position they are going to have. By the way, I want you to know that the deeper that I went into researching their economy, I don't want you to think that they're doing much better than we are, except for the fact that we are a lot more transparent. That they
hide a lot
to
of
be.
stuff.
Underground, their real estate is falling apart faster than God knows what. I mean, they really have a big issue when it comes to real estate. They have, listen, Jack Ma. Who was missing in action for a little while. I mean, this guy was
like
literally kidnapped by his own. I mean, I don't want to use the term kidnap because I really don't know that for a fact. But this guy would just disappear. You know what I mean? And then one of his innovating companies was literally just taken away from him.
Yeah.
Just like that, period. He had to give control of that company, give it back, and that's just because he decided to
be vocal about
vocal about the
You know how many people take that for granted here?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'm like, the fact that you can actually like complain about the country and like say stuff about the flag is like, that is like, you say the wrong thing about the economy
without getting a bullet
I
in the
don't
back of
even-
your
yeah,
head.
yeah. It's like, people take that for granted, that whole like freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jack Ma, which is
the founder of Alibaba, which is 10 times bigger
it's
than
like,
Amazon.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
it's like that guy gets kidnapped and like a company gets taken away from him.
Yeah, but listen, guys, we are fighting a proxy war right now. Europe and the United States is fighting a proxy war with Russia, right? Russia is definitely weaker, but they're not done. And we also got to remember that they have nuclear weapons, right? And we don't know where that's going to go, to be quite honest with you. And I'm hoping that we solve that quickly, because it's looking like that's becoming one of the only options that they're going to have available. But China, if you're going to be confronting China, and if you're going to pressure the economy of China, it has to be done now. This is the moment where and I was so much pro India until the other day. I was listening to a couple of their politicians also, right? but if I had a choice, I would like to see us doing a lot more business, not only with India, but also with Latin America. Here's the part that I don't understand. If one of the fundamental reasons why people are coming through the border is for financial reasons, right? Because the economy in the country sucks.
That's true.
Shouldn't we be saying maybe we need a few more plants in Mexico, not China? Maybe we need a few more plants somewhere in Central America.
Why do you think that that's not the conversation being
Well, a lot of it has to do with the political corruption of these countries. A lot of it has to do with, unfortunately, the political instability. As a matter of fact, let me highlight some of the craziness that's going on in Latin America right now, right? So I don't know if you're paying attention to what's going on in Peru, right? So Lima, Peru right now which is the capital. Lima is the capital of Peru. It's essentially it's a mess. It's a mess. It's on fire. All the indigenous people that come from rural areas, and you're talking about a nation and an area that is very rich in tradition when it comes to. And by the way, so many different indigenous groups, but. So the I don't know if you absolutely know what's going on with the news, right? The president was
there's
Pedro
a
Castillo
guy that is out and a lady that is
was
in.
removed from power, and by the way, listen, a leftist
Corruption,
position,
right?
you know what I mean? So well, listen, the guy was only in power for over a year, right? So to make an assessment that there was a lot of corruption going on, I don't know that I'm willing to go there, but
Okay.
I know that the excess of the leftover economy challenges that came from COVID that was mismanaged by every country in Latin America. And then you add to that the fact that it's, again, a socialist, and maybe the fact that he's an Indian looking guy, you know what I mean, or an indigenous type of, maybe Main Street was not too crazy about having a guy like that be the president. Put a lot of pressure. He got impeached 3 times. The last one is the one that got him out. But that also angered a lot of people, you know, right? Especially the indigenous groups right now. You're seeing a lot of people coming out of different places, and the Peruvian tradition when it comes to indigenous, I never seen it that well organized, you know what I mean? I'm very familiar with some of the groups, the Quechua and the Aymara, which is known not only through their own language, but also their own identity as a group. You know what I mean? But that's also the description of the language. A couple of tribes. Then you have the Shipibo or Sipibo, which are very famous for art. You know what I mean? They do a lot of beautiful art pieces, a lot of stuff that you see. And by the way, a lot of people lately, especially because of Jordan Peterson, talking about shamanic rituals. You know what I mean? And Joe Rogan kind of has gone into that conversation. So one of the tribes out there, which is the Ashaiminka, I believe. By the way, this is, guys, the Inca Empire, right? Is very well known, rival to the Maya, and to obviously many of these Indian empires. But the fact of the matter is that what they're demanding is the removal of the current president, who was the former vice president. Right, and so they don't want this lady.
So their structure is very similar to ours.
Yeah, very similar, except for the fact.
Up to president.
Yeah. It's just that the power structure is a little different. Where he made a gigantic mistake was trying to dissolve the Congress, which was done many years ago by President Fujimori, who essentially took full control. Totalitarian control, and I think he was probably hinting that was the only option available for him. But that kind of opened up a big mistake, you know what I mean? That's literally what got him out. But now they are demanding, the same people that were supporting him are demanding for the lady to step down, looking for quick elections, and she's trying to say, hey, at the end of the year, you know what I mean, let's run it this year, let's see if we can, give me the chance. As a matter of fact, she literally stated that, give me the chance to see if I can do something about it, right? But so
About the country or about the election?
About trying to do something with the economy, you know what I mean? Because that is the issue, right?
Yeah.
And so right now you have the roads are being blocked, there's no traffic, so the economy again came to a full stop, right? So things are not going to get better. I don't know if she's going to be able to hold on to power. But again, listen, this is just highlighting how much trouble
So why the U.S. won't do business with?
So now I'm a private industry, right? Now I'm Ford Motors. Now I'm Chevy. I'm from the car industry to
People are burning tires.
Microsoft to Intel. You know what I mean? I was thinking about when microchips, right? Or like, oh, COVID, we can't get microchips for the cars, for the cell phones. And like, why don't we have something going on out of Latin America? Like, you know what I mean? Just find one of those things. It's right there. You know what I mean? We should be able to. That's why. That's why. How about Brazil? We had a little bit of a conversation about Brazil just recently. I don't know if you know what's happening there, right? A new president that, again,
Lula.
also. Lula made it very clear, I'm a socialist, a guy from the left who's actually reversing a lot of the position of the previous president, who was he was a right, you know what I mean, pro-capitalism type of guy. As a matter of fact, what Bolsonaro was trying to do is he was trying to privatize a lot of the government large entities, which from my perspective is a good idea because they stop. If you can privatize, especially something like Petrobras, I don't know if you're familiar. Petrobras is their equivalent to what is the entity for Venezuela?
PDVSA.
PDVSA, right? So that would be the equivalent, and I'm talking about something that's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you have a country that's already corrupt, right, with a lot of politicians where it has been undisputable, as a matter of fact, Lula was arrested at some point under charges of corruption, former vice president, right? So here you have access to all of this money, right?
They believe in
And,
giving somebody a second try.
yeah, you know, and you want to believe that it's possible, and you want to believe that they're gonna do things that would be good for people. But at the end of the day, you know, just the announcement itself caused for the value of Petrobras to go down 3%. And I'm not talking about, you know, that was the equivalent of $3,000. That was the equivalent of millions and millions of dollars that was lost. So
What was the announcement?
There was a few things that he did almost immediately taking power, right? First of all, announcing that we are not privatizing any of the companies that my predecessor was trying to privatize.
So Petrobras will continue to be
a state run
by the government.
By the government. So good luck with that, right?
Yeah.
So second of all, you know, one of the things that I think that Latin America truly doesn't have a clear understanding of how significant the Second Amendment is in this country.
Oh yeah.
So they want to take guns
So
away?
they actually want to they want to stop access because obviously the previous president was, you know, like creating an environment where people would be able to.
Because that's
own
always
private.
the best sign, right? When the country wants to remove the people's rights to bear arms.
You know, so it's like.
whoa. Let's say that happens.
Yeah.
Who has the guns?
Just the army.
If you and I don't have the guns, who has them?
Just the army.
And
the government.
And the criminals,
Yeah.
the bad guys.
But 1,000%.
The bad guys are the ones that falls on.
100%.
They're gonna have access to period.
Can I tell you that that is the one part that most people don't get?
Yeah.
The fact that you don't want to arm the good guys doesn't mean that you're gonna disarm the bad guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like that's the most unfortunate thing.
I keep on saying this, but in my country, people go to demonstrations with pots and pans. Like we're on like the government is shooting at us, and we're going there, ping, 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 ping. Like it's
Crazy.
just not pretty.
Crazy.
It's not.
It's another
makes
right
zero
that's definitely
sense.
taken for granted here. 1,000%.
Yeah, it's like that. Taking guns away is never the option.
But I mean, just
It's
think
the
about it,
second
right?
thing that
Nothing
put in
good
the
ever came
Constitution.
from that either.
Yeah.
So.
If people don't understand it here, right, and we are always like a couple of inches away from losing that right. Imagine people that are outside of this country, right, that are being sold into the idea that the problem is the guns, right? I promise you that somebody will always find a knife if it's needed. When you
Right.
happen to be a criminal, you're gonna find a way to do criminal activities. So, regardless, whatever it is, the problem is that is the one concept that I hope everybody will remember. You know, the fact that you don't allow the good guys, because as long as an army, unless you saying zero weapons across the board, and that means that the next time you have lunch, you can't even do it with a real knife and fork. You're gonna have to, I don't know.
What is it? A spork?
Go Indian
Those
or
things are
Guyanese
terrible.
style, you know what I mean? And just use your hand. I have no idea. But anyway, with that being said, also, now, a couple of things, by the way, I don't want to criticize it 100% without highlighting something that I do believe is positive. You know what I mean? They're going to put additional funding through the rainforest, Amazon area, you know what I mean? And I'm saying positive because I'm hoping that they're actually going to do something useful with it, like planting trees. How about that, right? If everybody's so concerned, the green movement gets a little out of hand sometimes. You guys are like out of your mind most of the times, right? But how about something
Stop
as simple
driving.
as you know, stop protesting. Get 3,000 people protesting to just go plant a tree.
Right.
You have no idea how much of a difference that will make. And that goes back to Brazil. Listen, like I have no issues with additional money to go into improving the planet. I would love for us, the same way that you want to have a healthy body, you want to have a healthy planet. It's good
Right.
for everyone.
That's true.
The problem is when this just become another gimmick, another situation. The previous president literally said, "No somos el pulmón del mundo. We're not the lung of the world," right? And it's because it is one of those conversations where if you don't support it, you're a bad guy, right? The problem is, what are we supporting? We're just throwing money to something that we don't know exactly how it's going to be used, and that opens the doors to more corruption. So going back to the reason why we're having this conversation about this, and finally, has a lot another position that he took in terms of classifying and declassifying documents, right? Yeah, you know.
Wait, so Brazil is going through that too?
Yeah, Brazil was trying to come up with something that is very similar. Bolsonaro was trying to come up with something that would be similar to how United States will classify certain documents for a long time, right? About 100 years. Lula, in this case, is actually saying, well, we're going to probably make it shorter. Now, I don't, to be quite honest with you, I had mixed feelings about that, right? Look at the mess that we got going on with JFK and a lot of things that we would like to know. Area 51, everybody's asking, okay, somebody, please, for the love of God, say something. What the hell is going on there? We don't know. We don't know what's taking place. So sometimes documents to be classified for such a long time, I know that they keep saying that it's for the better good of the public, right? But at some point you want to say, hey, how about you treat me as a grown-up, not as a child? Okay, let me process that information and see how do I handle it. Hopefully, by the way, hopefully there is no information out there that will require looking for a tall building because it was so bad, right?
But did you check your garage just to make sure that you don't have any classified documents?
I know.
Everybody and their mother.
Apparently everybody's garage is...
I went through my closet and everything.
I don't like closets, but that's like a whole other thing.
It's not a safe place for you, I understand.
But the fact of the matter is, guys, your position, or political and financial position, is going to play a role on who you're going to be supporting. And when you think about how we are just missing that opportunity, the fact of the matter, the fact that we actually got to go as a country overseas, that you have products that have to go through sea for how many days just to be able to get to our shores, just because we are not able to establish a relationship that we consider healthy enough, stable enough to say, you know what, this is a good country to make an investment. And for every single one of the countries in Latin America, not to be looking at that scenario and saying, we really need to get our act together if we want to participate in that level of economy. Because I promise you that a country that has every single one of their people employed, healthy, and having a good economy, a happy economy per se, will be one of those countries that will have no reason to. By the way, we've seen that when countries are having a good economy or a healthy economy, there's no migration of people from those countries to the United States.
Like Germany, right? Germany is the number 2 country that people move into.
Right.
Correct.
I don't see a lot
They're
of
not
people from
going
Germany
anywhere,
coming
right?
over here. Some people are visiting. We have somebody here.
Yeah,
But they want to go back.
Yeah.
But so, and I was having a conversation, guys, right now with a couple of friends because it's just a matter of time before we having this conversation about the election of the next president of the United States. Get ready for that. Everybody ready for that one? And are you looking forward to all those nasty commercials that
I couldn't be more ready.
I already had a reason not to watch TV, and that just makes it even more obvious, right? But guys, the country right now, officially, Gallup says that I'm bringing this to your attention for a very specific reason, which goes back to what's going on overseas and all of these positions, right? Right now, it says that registered Democrats in the country, about 26%. Mind you, these numbers change from month to month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Republicans right now, about 30%. That means that independents, and you can throw in there libertarians, I guess, you know what I mean, which will probably be the only other party that I would care to mention, right? Even though, I don't know if you know this, but there's 420 political parties registered in the United States.
That's a lot.
You
More things to
you
identify.
probably have the Green Party of Mickey Mouse. I have no idea who's
I was gonna
registered.
say.
420 of them. But the fact of the matter is that we know that is right now at this very moment is Republican and Democrat that is
Right.
actually running this country, and the idea, right, is that we have enough.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have independents or independent-minded individuals that will be shifting one way or the other, right? But today, and I have a lot of good friends that probably won't like this, that if you are registering yourself as an independent or libertarian, and who the hell is running? Who do you know right now that it would be even worth supporting
None of
when
these
it comes
parties have
to an
a
election?
face.
So to me, it's a cop out.
not
You not
have a
saying,
position?
you know what? To not have a position is, I think it's cowardly. I think it's cowardly. I think that right now we truly, especially the country being so polarized, we need to make it very clear that, guys, we are so divided in a 50-50 type of scenario that let's try to understand how we're going to navigate the mess that we have going on. Because not to come across as saying, okay, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. Right now, guys, from a financial position, just think about it, right? Think about money, think about business, think about capitalism, think about American dream, think about the mess that's going on in immigration, think about all the stuff that's going on. For me, I can only be leaning one way when it comes to that political position, right? And I want to register to represent that so that I'm making it very clear this is where I stand, right? It's not that anybody's going to misuse, take advantage, or not value my position. But the biggest reason, guys, is that a lot of people don't pay attention to the foreign policy of most of this. And I'm going to tell you, if this...
Why? Because it doesn't affect what they are seeing.
Right, we don't think that we need to think outside of the borders, right?
Right.
We only need to be concerned about what's going on in here.
Right.
But
That's why we bring the border in here.
among the many contrasting
I have no choice.
positions that these political parties actually have, precisely how they behave when it comes to foreign policy is one of the things that we need to pay attention. And Democrats do a horrible job. I am not surprised right now that Latin America and many other countries, you know, when you think about what's going on in Taiwan, when you think about what's going on in Ukraine, right? When you think about all those things that are taking place, that always happens under a Democrat administration, right? Opposed to a Republican administration that
Right,
do get involved with foreign policy.
There was no wars
Say that again?
during President Trump.
By the way, peace through strength. Peace through strength. This is a guy that have no issues letting a head of an organization, a terrorist organization, say, I know exactly where you are,
Right.
and sending the coordinates of his house.
It's very refreshing today.
So make sure you make the right choice. If anything happens to any of our guys, you know what's going to happen to you. And
Right.
sometimes you need to have a position that is that clear. For that reason, I'm saying that I don't think it's a good idea for people to be playing around with what is your position. Because right now, guys, what we need to support, if we want to get a handle of this immigration conversation, if we're going to get a handle of the economy, if we want to get a handle of, we need to stop pretending that the things that people are doing are not going to have a negative effect, not only on the economy, but also on how we leading the country. I said before, if we're gonna go to war with China, we better do it sooner than later.
And we need to stop doing business with them. Didn't you say that it's like we don't do business with the
How about-
countries here in Latin America,
Yeah.
but like we keep on
I don't
like,
understand
made in
that.
China.
I don't understand
Like,
how
what?
how we're gonna keep supporting an economy
Yeah.
that is hell
our
bent
enemy.
on destructing
Yeah.
us.
Right.
Number one enemy. Yeah.
Like there's no secret
It's
on that.
public.
Like these guys
Yeah.
are really like everybody knows that. And finally, guys, it brings us down to the question of leadership. There's I think that it's becoming very clear that we're gonna have a Governor DeSantis, probably running for office, and I think he's gonna get a lot more support than people expected. You know what I mean? And I think that especially if you have to say what's gonna be in a primary between him and Donald Trump, because we know that Donald Trump is
It's
gonna be
gonna be
running.
ugly,
So.
yeah.
It appears that somebody like Newsom from the state of California might be coming
Gavin
up as a good looking guy though. Good looking guy.
That's
He's a
about
good looking governor of California. I mean, if you can govern based on looks, he's definitely gonna have a phenomenal thing.
Yeah,
but knowing
he's
what
tall.
we know about the difference of the two states
wouldn't
right
know.
now,
That's about it.
you don't have an opinion about that.
Like,
You don't have an opinion about his looks? Oh man.
She's like,
He's
"He's
tall.
tall."
That's about it.
Can I ask you a question, guys? You know what I mean? How do you think people are going to be processing the next election? And if you have these two guys running, what do you think can potentially happen?
Well, so how do I think? Or because I look at the country and what would be healthy based on what happened during COVID. Less businesses closed in Florida. We took the precautions, and then everybody was kind of free to do as they please. In California, right, which is where this guy is on Newsom, other than the fact that he's tall, he had the whole rules for thee but not for me, right? So he'll go to parties, no mask, but everybody had to wear a mask.
Yeah.
We moved the business meeting that we had in December 2020. We had to, like, in a matter of week, we had to move flights. Remember that?
Correct.
From California, Lake Tahoe. I was looking forward to being there, to San Antonio because of the way that this guy was doing business.
That's why we were in San Antonio. I was trying to remember how we ended up here.
Yeah, I was really upset. I really like Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to being there, but guess what? I wasn't like really
By the
upset.
way, San Antonio, that was a phenomenal.
It was awesome. It was like Cantera. It was very nice. It was a very nice place, and I was grateful that we were there. But if you think about the way that business was being handled, like the state did better. There's a reason why Florida is growing 460,000 people and California is negative 113,000. There are people leaving California for a reason. For me, I don't know. It makes no sense whatsoever to have somebody like Mr. Newsom run for office.
My opinion is that never assume, because to be honest, like, I think we would think that we're at a point where we can literally say, like, if it's not obvious already, like, who is going to be running the country, like, you get to a point where it's like there's still a large amount of people that can be manipulated, or really like seeing something that is not actually there. So, which I guess is what elections is really all about. And a lot of times, like, we want to think we got it in the bag. The Republican Party has it in the bag.
No, not at all.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And you're going to be stunned the amount of people that are really not seeing the clear picture. So when it comes to elections, to be honest, for me, it's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. To me, that's a joke. I think that's hilarious. But to many people, they see it as like a real bat-to-bat. Like, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, a lot of people are predicting that would be a real
that would be
challenge,
the actual
a real competitive election. And the funny thing is that the reason why we can't take anything for granted, though, is like, I don't think anybody was really seriously thinking President Joe Biden. When the whole thing actually started, the amount of people said, "No, there's no way in hell. He's older than."
Right.
And today, by the way, today you see a man who.
But people were shocked about Trump too.
Right.
But that's my point, right? But today you see a man that is physically and mentally struggling, right, in a very public way, unfortunately. And again, I said this with a great deal of respect. I mean, if I don't agree with his policies, you know how much I respect the office of the presidency, right? So
100%.
I don't want the country to not do well, you know what I mean? But nobody was expecting that. The same way that nobody was expecting to hear President Donald Trump, right? So we can't really take any of it for granted. What
Right.
we do know, though, is that the country at this point really needs some serious leadership.
And
Right.
perspective.
The problem is, again, we're going back to the very
Yeah.
beginning. Where are you getting your
Perspective,
sources of
leadership,
information?
somebody that can lead the country without fear of
Yeah.
opinion or being likable.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people felt a lot more safe having Donald Trump as president than Joe Biden
Well,
because
Technically, because a lot of people felt attacked too, like to a certain.
I'm
extent.
talking
I
talking
don't-
about our foreign enemies.
Oh.
Internal, we got to work through
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
that
yeah.
is.
It's like
But
it's a lot of
I'm
people
talking
were,
about
like,
even from a
up in
foreign
arms.
aspect. I mean, there was many a times under Joe Biden's presidency where I was just like, this is gonna be it for us. Like, this is how we're gonna go down. And a lot of countries took a lot of advantage of that, of exactly who's president, the situation that we're in, and used it to their advantage. So I think that's also a huge factor. People not understanding like how much or how heavily affected our country is by our surrounding countries or people that foreign national things. Like a lot of people are not taking that as seriously when it comes to like how that affects our country. So and I think we were talking about this before, which political party has made more of a stance and a movement in that direction, and it has been the Republican Party that always ends up going to do that. Now to have somebody in office that is willing to stand, and that's something that I've respect always about DeSantis, has been the fact that he will stand firm on his belief in a very polite understanding way, a little bit different than Trump, but stand very firm on his belief because his belief is truly the growth of our state and our country, and aiding to that. And so
It's a Trump-like but more polished way of going about issues. Is what
right,
it
which
sounds
was
like.
ultimately what people's
Yeah, 'cause
issue with Trump was.
It makes
right?
no sense to go recruiting enemies for no reason.
Right.
But here's
That's
the one similar thing, guys, that President Trump and President Biden actually had. They both have in common. The one similar thing, the similarity that is that in both cases,
really old.
besides being old,
Ridiculously old.
I agree with that. Is that in both cases, people ended up with buyer's remorse
Right.
from both political parties. You know what I mean? It's very evident that Democrats today, most of them are like, what the hell did we get here? What did we do?
That was very
there really
evident.
not a better? The same was for Trump. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. There was a lot of people that just wanted something different, and then quickly they couldn't handle
I
his
think this
way.
last election was more about
it would-
choosing the lesser evil, right? It was more
I think
in
that the last
direction.
election was about choosing
Yeah, but we
somebody
could
that was
afford
not
X.
Donald Trump.
Like-
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I go
Yeah,
back
but-
to like, oh
yeah,
my
all right.
god.
So yeah, you got offended with a couple of
Sorry.
tweets, but you know what? But extra
gas
cheaper.
was a buck.
Extra
Like,
cheaper
not a dollar,
and-
but like $2.
But no, that election, guys, was truly about not Trump. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think there's some
100%.
people, but make no mistake about it. There's a lot of those so-called 42% independents that today are having some significant buyer's remorse. The final thing is, what our country really needs right now is more people to step up to leadership. Think about when you think about names like Gandhi, like Dr. Martin Luther King, who we were just recently celebrating his birthday. Lincoln. When you think about the impact that those names had, and when you go through names like Winston Churchill or Nelson Mandela, that the leadership has the capability to have such a great impact. For me, I go to names like Alexander the Great, right, or my favorite, Constantine the Great, right. When you think about how desperately, it's not just our country. It's just that, guys, we're falling apart right now.
Right.
Not just as a country. Tell me about a place that's actually doing well at this very moment.
Humanity.
And it's very difficult to find it. You know what I mean? So we need leadership all around. We need better players. We need better people to actually play this whole political game and to do it for the sole purpose of making things better. You know, opposed to just, you know, for their own experience. You know what I mean? And for their own profit and gain. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that we can get to see some of that coming up because, you know, again, we are seeing everything that's going wrong right now at a national level, at an international level. And I'm hoping that enough people will be paying attention to it.
And
So
will
that's
remember
what I'm hoping and
more than
praying
anything
for.
else.
So that we can make better choices and hopefully that will come out. But anyway, guys, appreciate definitely having you here
Thank
today.
you.
You know what I mean? Any
Yes.
final thoughts, Brianna, about some of these things that we spoke about today?
For me, to be honest, it's just about
From your current generation and your perspective also. Like,
right. So speaking for my generation,
yes.
for my generation, for women, for just everything. I think it's super important that we continue to be informed and not rely on one specific point of view or news outlet in order to give us factual information. I think it is extremely important that like we now step up with our own opinion that is coming from our own research. You know, once election times comes around, that's always my number one advice. You know, stop listening to Facebook facts and people that just have opinions and be like, that sounds nice, that makes sense to me, let's run with it. Really go out there and make it important to understand these things. And even if you think things like immigration or foreign national affairs and things that you think that don't necessarily involve you does still affect you. So that it's really important that we stay connected to these everyday issues. So then, you know, we're able to really make a different path for ourselves, our generation. You know, millennials are a little bit on that border of like the lost generation, and like we're right on that border, and it is very confusing times, but it's also very exciting times. This is the opportunity for people to step up and show out and really set a different path for yourself and for your family. You know, we were talking, to close it out, we were talking about leadership, right? Leadership starts with first you become a leader of yourself, then you become a leader of your home, then you become a leader of your family, a leader of your community, city, you know, and so on and so forth. So there's levels to these things, and I think starting that process as soon as possible, seeing the urgency in that, learning to become independent, learning how to make money, making skills, and creating value of yourself is going to be your best bet in these times right now. So I'm extremely grateful to be, you know, on the podcast and being able to share some input. I hope to be invited back. You know, just
We'll see.
make it. Put in the comments if you want me to be. If you want me to be invited back, but yeah, that's my perspective as a millennial in her 20s still. You know, so yeah.
All right.
So for me, a recommendation will be whatever it is that your position is right now, look for a difference of opinion.
Right.
That actually helped me out a lot. Understand one thing as you're forming your opinion, that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that's also what happens with our leadership. I think that there's a lot of flippy-floppy leadership when it comes to government. And we need strong leadership because people make good times.
Right.
And right now, good times make weak people, and we're going through that right now. We talked about that before. Stay alert, stay alive, watch out how things are getting expensive. Please save, please stay cautious of whatever's happening with your money. Don't be afraid, but make moves, but also understand that this is not the time to be splurging on things. And the last couple of things are related to, you know, understanding that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not the entitlement of happiness. Entitlement doesn't get anybody anywhere. Not us. Not people that come to this country, not anybody that thinks, give me. We want to make sure that we give. At the end of the day, as far as what helped me get to the position that I'm at right now, is understanding that we all have the capitalist values, which is freedom to buy, freedom to sell, freedom to try, freedom to fail. And if that continues to be the guiding principle for yourself, there's no way that you're unable to like make it in this country. It's a beautiful country. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk about it and to say how amazing and the opportunity that we have here. I just hope that we get to keep having that opportunity, because I do know what happens when we make a bad decision in an election and 20 years go by and a country that is thriving just goes backwards.
Right.
I'm thinking about the statement made by Albert Einstein, you know what I mean, that says that the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch it happen or let it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
Wow.
that right now,
Jesus.
Right.
yeah, when you think about everything that's going on, right, the biggest thing that we can do is just to make, it's a call to action, you know what I mean? It's like, just do something, learn a little more, get involved, you know what I mean? Try to take, nobody ever expected to see how much of a negative impact Cuba was going to have over, it's a tiny little island that had such an impact over Latin America, right? And their political process. Nobody ever expected that Marxism that was going to then become the conversation about socialism and you know, liberation theology and all those things that were, nobody ever expected that Venezuela was going to become such a when these things were happening at that very moment, that they could have been addressed aggressively, forcefully in some cases, to make sure that this thing, because people don't know better. There's a lot of poverty.
Cancer is a little cell.
And it's very easy to manipulate the needs of people, right? Just for, again, for political gain. And for me, there's no uglier, dirtier industry than politics, right? That's a game that is definitely dirty. Very few people are there for the right reason, and I respect those people that do get involved for the better good of the community and their countries and their cities and their communities in general. We need more of those people. That's why, again, the call is not only a call to action, but it's a call to action from the perspective of leadership. With that being said, we're deeply grateful that you were part of this conversation today. Brianna, it was definitely a pleasure having you today. We'll see if we bring you back. We'll see.
You guys put in the comments if you want me to come back.
With that being said, if any of this was helpful to you in terms of information, please pass it around. See if we can share this, like, subscribe, continue to help us grow the channel.
Let us know if you disagree.
Yeah, especially, you know, we
I love
welcome
that.
those comments, all right? So with that being said, guys, thank you. We'll see you until the next one. We'll see you soon again.
Thank you.
Bye.